What is your beer of choice today?
Today's an 8:05 kind of day.
Yesterday was a drinking day, so today is water.
That's
Weird.
the difference between me and you, Jacob. Is every day's a drink.
So the movie today is Lawrence of Arabia. Um, where do we even begin? It is obviously I don't know. I feel like it's not as famous of a movie as we might think it is, especially amongst the younger
I think
generation.
everyone knows what it is. I feel like it's the poster child for the 50s 60s epic.
I don't know. I thought that would have been the case, but I think people our age or younger, I don't know. I don't know. Brought it up to a few people recently, and it's not exactly like the first.
It's on the
They have a
border.
vague awareness of like, oh, guess I've heard of that. But I don't know.
I
It's kind
I
of
don't know, because
faded from the
to
general
me it kind of
consciousness.
feels like it feels like the equivalent of Vertigo.
Hmm.
Because I know a lot of people who, they know The Birds, they know Psycho. But if I ask most of my family, like, have you heard of Vertigo? Probably be like, no. It's not Color of Pomegranate's obscure, but it's
Yeah,
not
yeah,
Citizen Kane
yes,
famous. Yeah.
yes. We're always talking in terms of perspective and one thing versus another. But and I think it's Lawrence is fading from just the general mass
Yeah.
going film audience, which is a shame because Lawrence of Arabia is one of the greatest films ever made. Spoiler
I
alert.
agree. I
That's what
agree.
that's what we think. And the rest of this review discussion thing will be us just unpacking our thoughts on the film because I don't know. I feel like I have some interesting things to say about it. Not
I
necessarily all positive
yeah.
too, but
So are we just
not
getting straight
necessarily any
into it then?
criticism. Yeah, why,
No diary
well,
today.
well, let's quickly mention. Okay, so we got that out of the way. You know what we think of Lawrence. Stay around if you want to hear our in-depth thoughts. But first, we will quickly go over some other things we've been watching, some new movies. One of which was the new movie Spencer, uh,
Spencer,
about about the titular Spencer, who
Princess Diana.
was Princess Diana, um, and starring Kirsten Cinema
Kristen's
as
Jesus. Don't even.
Kristen Stewart as Diana, and
Timothy Spall,
Timothy
life
Spall's in there.
lifelong friend of the show, Timothy Spall.
Yeah, yeah. Who's God? Why can't I think of her name now?
Sally Hawkins.
Sally Hawkins. Yeah, Sally Hawkins is in the movie. I knew nothing essentially going in, as I've stated before. I've just avoided trailers and stuff for most things, and so um, it's
But you
easy
saw
with something
Jackie.
like. Did I? What?
Did you see Jackie?
No.
Oh, same guy. Yeah.
Oh. Anyway, so some movies it's hard, like with Licorice Pizza, I've had to actively avoid it. But with Spencer, I just never crossed paths with it,
Yeah.
which was nice. And so
It's a
I
good
was
trailer
actually,
too.
what was it? I might have to go back and take a look. Anyway, I was up in Phoenix the other weekend, and we actually got to go see a movie together for once, which was really nice. Um, it was good.
Spencer?
Chandler, what do you think of Spencer?
Spencer's really good. It's very interesting. I hate the Royals. I don't know why people obsess over the Royals. So I avoided this because I thought this was just going to be, um, uh, just a puff piece on Princess Diana. But
Who
it's
isn't a
very interesting.
royal?
Well,
It,
technically, she's royal
well,
adjacent.
yes, yes.
Yeah. But I lump her in with all the other royals because it's just, it's part of the collective obsession. But this movie, I feel like, hates the royals even more than I do because it portrays every royal that isn't Diana as like antiquated, out of touch, overly traditional, stiff, that sort of thing.
Yeah,
And I thought it was
I got
very
more of the
interesting.
sense that it was just not concerned at all with actually portraying or being like a historically accurate piece. It was more of a using the royals and that kind of lifestyle as a vehicle for a another narrative, which probably came first
Hmm.
because it's not. I don't think this is not specifically like based on anything uh, specific in Diana's life or the royal's life. It's just
No,
a story that was created and then grafted onto the royal household. So it feels more like they are being used in this. What was the title card at the beginning? It was like, this is a fable or something, or
something like that. Yeah, I don't know.
yeah. So it announces quite early on that it's not a historical biopic. It is more of a character study of
Yeah.
a fictional version of a real life person.
Yeah, and that's the kind of thing I prefer because most biopics I feel like follow a formula that results in them trying to pack too much about a person into too little a time. Whereas I prefer
Whereas
something
with
like
Lawrence of
this.
Arabia, it packs it into 4 hours of time.
But still, even then, Lawrence of Arabia is just like a small chunk of his life. And this is what I think I prefer as far as
Mhm.
biopics go. Um, it's not about it's not a history lesson. You're trying to teach what this person represented, what they were about. And I think this does it in 3 days because the whole movie takes place over the course of 3 days.
Nice and
Christmas Eve,
compact.
Christmas, yep, and Boxing Day, which I don't know the fuck that is. I don't know what England's up to over there, and I don't want
They're
to know.
boxing, obviously.
What the
I
hell?
mean, I was most disappointed when they cut from the scene where the queen was going to box with her children.
Oh yeah, there's a deleted scene where Timothy Spall fucking decks the queen. And they left it out, the cowards.
Yeah, everyone else is too afraid to actually hit the queen, but not Timothy
Yeah,
Spall.
but that's the thing is, it's just it's a small bit of her life. I can't necessarily say this is accurate to. I doubt it's accurate to any sort of time and place, but I do think the essence of Diana and what she
Yeah, yeah,
stood
it's
for.
definitely the
It
spirit,
yes,
the
yes,
struggles she went with as
yeah.
adapting to that life.
It's the kind of stuff I prefer, like fucking like Mishima. That's another way. That's another one that just sort of
Sure,
compacts everything. Lawrence. It's also
this
really well shot.
it's really well shot, pretty very well edited, um, pretty decent acting all around too. Like it's
Oh
just a
yeah,
really solid movie. And my only real gripe with it is I felt like it was a little one note for a lot of it. Like it got kind of repetitive for with some scenes of where there was not necessarily a clear arc to a lot of scenes where things are changing. It was just oh, here's another example of the royals are trying to conform her in this
yeah.
life. And there were obviously scenes where she kind of breaks out of that mold. She has her friend Sally Hawkins. When Sally Hawkins comes back into the movie, I'm like, oh my god, this is a nice little break from this
Wonderful.
kind of, because it's like a psychological
Yeah, there's some
thriller
fucked
in
up
a way.
elements to it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's fucked up, and it got a little tedious once or twice. It was like, I could do it with a little more
I'd
brevity
agree.
here and there, some
I'd
life,
agree.
and
Yeah,
emphasizing that. But other than that, I think it was a pretty good movie.
but I also I enjoy those psychological elements because I'm thinking of the middle aged people who are like, oh, let's go see a movie about Diana, and then fucking Kristen Stewart's eating pearls.
Oh yeah, I'd much rather have a movie overemphasize psychological elements and maybe get that a little off, rather
Yeah,
than the inverse of focusing too much on plot and being kind of
yeah.
normal and just your average pedestrian movie.
It's kind of one of those things where I saw it, and by the end of it, I thought, I know, I get it, and now I'm like, I don't know what to do with it now because I feel like if I see it again, I'm not gonna get it more. I kind of got it. There's kind of everything I needed. Um,
Yeah, it has a point to make and it makes that point quite effectively, and that's it.
it's a great seasonal movie. Some great Christmas shots. English cuisine is disgusting.
It is a terrible Christmas movie. Oh, my internet connection is unstable.
Whoa,
What is this nonsense?
what is this cringe?
Um, I watched The Power of the Dog,
Oh yeah,
which
yeah.
was a movie. It
Yep.
is the
I
movie.
can't. I can't comment yet. I've yet to see it. I'm gonna make a point of seeing it later this week.
I want Chandler to see it. I want to bounce some ideas I have on the movie off of
Do you want to
some
wait like
people.
a week, or do you want to just go now?
No, I just want to give people. I want to tell people not to watch it.
Wow.
Anyway, so it's been getting a lot of good reviews. It's a new movie from director Jane
Jane Campion.
Campion, who did The
Campion.
Piano, which is coming out on 4K Criterion pretty soon, which is kind of cool.
It is very
Really
cool.
nice cover. But that's beside the point. She's a great director. She hasn't made anything in a
Not to be
while, and this is
mistaken with the piano teacher. Very different.
yes, or The Pianist.
Or the piano,
All,
also very
all
different.
very different movies with similar titles. So this is a western that takes place in Montana, but it is actually filmed in New Zealand, which bugs me, but it's not actually an issue. It is beautifully shot. Stars Benedict Cumberbatch, it stars Jesse Plemons and Kirsten Dunst, who it's kind of a Fargo season 2 reunion of sorts with them because they're a couple in this movie. I
Until they
like to
got married.
think yeah, I like to think that they should now make a movie that's sci-fi where they also play a couple, and then it'll just be like throughout history they're always
The Plemons
wherever
are
they are,
eternal.
wherever they end up, always together. Anyway, it's a really interesting character-driven western, and I like a lot of where the movie was trying to go and trying to do. Um, but it was a very frustrating movie watching experience because it is a purposely slow movie, and
Which Jacob hates.
no, I love that kind of stuff. But at some point, I began to realize that a lot of the character stuff that seems um, well thought out and kind of deep felt more like superficial and trying to uh, get to a certain point. And characters felt more like used pawns at a certain point in the film than they did actual characters.
Interesting.
This is not really a spoiler, but Jesse Plemons' character kind of like drops off the map about halfway through the movie, and then he reappears when the movie needs him to reappear again. And it it's all in service of, so it's also starring essentially Benedict Cumberbatch's character is what the movie is really focused on. He's not exactly the main character; he's sort of the antagonist. But the movie is his sort of built around a character study of his character, and it felt like a lot of the other characters were built up to interesting characters in order to then be used as tools to flesh out his whole deal. And then they were kind of like dropped from the film in any meaningful way. And I'm not sure if anyone else noticed this. I think it's pretty. For me, it
Cringe.
was obvious. There was some other stuff. I don't really want to necessarily get into spoilers too much. Um, and I probably need to just kind of digest my thoughts a little bit more. But I was frustrated by it. I'll just say that. And it got to about halfway through, it got to the point where the slow pacing was too slow. And I was like,
Mm.
all right, get on with it. But it is playing for free on Netflix. I mean, not for free, but if you have
For
Netflix,
free.
you can
Yeah.
watch it. It is good. It's a cut above a lot of other movies. I'm not gonna say it has a lot of craft, technically really nice, and watch it, make your own judgment, and maybe Chandler and I will revisit it briefly after he watches it at some point.
Hopefully this weekend. I'm trying to see that and Come On, Come On, which both look wonderful. I watched a movie. It's been a few weeks at this point, but we haven't talked in a while, so I'm just gonna bring it up now. I watched a little ditty called "The Taking of Pelham 123."
Ooh, good one.
This movie fucking slaps.
It does.
It's
It
so
does.
good. It's nonstop. It just from the very first frame, it is just such a good movie. Such a great thriller.
It's one of those older movies where I would show it to someone without hesitancy these days. Like I think it has appeal still. Like it holds up incredibly
Oh
well. It's
yeah.
still tightly paced, even by today's standards.
I've always appreciated movies that are able to get away with not really having a main character. Because really isn't. You could say Walter Matthau is the main character if you had to choose one. But it's
He is
just like,
emphasized a bit more than others, but he's not.
yeah, yeah. It's like the story basically is these terrorists take hold of a train, the subway train, demand money for a ransom. and then it's just like one little event ripples into like 40 different fucking characters who are all trying to take control of the situation. They're all the most New York characters of all time, and it's
It's
just
a very New York movie.
incredibly New York, and it's just entertaining. It's surprising. There are twists and turns and suspenseful, just fun to watch the whole way through, and the ending is just perfect. That last shot is just so fucking funny. It's just absolutely amazing. I can't praise it enough.
Yeah, it's
You
great.
watch it, it's
Watch
just
it.
fun. You go. Like you go.
Oh, I'm done. Essentially.
Oh, well, I'll just speed through the rest. I watched Monsieur Hulot's Holiday. Fun. It was fun. That Jacques Tati is a big, tall goof. Um, I rewatched My Dinner with Andre, which I have a hot take about My Dinner with Andre. The first 40 minutes are like insufferable, and then the last like hour is perfect. So I don't know where I land on this movie.
Which, just to put this out there, I disagree. The whole thing is wonderful.
I don't think this movie gets interesting until Wallace Shawn starts engaging the conversation. Because the first like 40 minutes where it's just Andre talking about his fucking bougie New York theater club owner, like finding himself in a third world country, I just hate that shit. And
The
it's
third
just
world
so
country was
annoying.
Poland.
Yeah, it was.
I find that so interesting. Like, I think the movie has a really great build up in terms of the conversation, and
Yeah.
you want to get to the where Wallace Shawn is starting to interact. But I think it makes sense in terms of like the conversation between the two of them,
Yeah.
where Wallace Shawn is a bit less engaged with everything
Because
going
he doesn't
into
want to
it.
be there.
He's a little hesitant, and so it makes sense he's going to be listening more. And I think Andre Gregory's his wild bougie theater kid stories are really, they're fun, they're silly, they're pretentious, but in a way that I think sets you up for the latter half where Wallace Shawn gives pushback to Andre Gregory's thinking.
Which is nice.
And yes,
Yeah.
yes,
I forgot how much back and forth there was towards the end. Because they get to a point where they're basically on opposite sides of the philosophical spectrum. And I kind of really enjoy that when Wallace Shawn starts. In particular, the conversation, I don't know if you remember this, the conversation they have about Wallace Shawn's heating blanket,
yes.
which is just wonderful. Which any other movie, I feel like they just would have let Andre run away with that thought, but Wallace Shawn shuts it down so beautifully.
It is a whole conversation about the philosophy behind a heating blanket.
And it's
What a
wonderful.
yes,
It's
yes, it
great.
really is. You'd
It's
think
a
it wouldn't
great
work,
movie.
but it does.
I was surprised how well it was working. I watched, this one's a big one. Finally got around to watching Hard Eight.
Yeah. Is that you have Magnolia left for
That's it. Yeah, Magnolia.
Anderson?
So Hard Eight, about like 30-45 minutes into Hard Eight, I was like, this isn't that bad. This is fine. This is really good. Like PTA was coming out the gate swinging. The last hour or so goes around, and I'm just kind of like,
It's fine.
it's perfectly
That's it.
fine. Whatever. It's good. It's good. Rewatch Knives Out, perfect movie. Just is. Rewatched Rushmore, perfect movie. Final talking point is I gave a good old rewatch of Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 3.
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man.
It's been so long since I've seen Spider-Man 3, and the last time I watched it, I was young, naive. It was before I got into movies. I had
Same.
this vague
Same.
awareness that it was kind of schlocky, but I enjoyed it, and I've never wanted to ever return to it because then I can always hold this childhood fondness for the movie while also being very much aware of how it's not good. And all you really need
Yeah.
is to go onto YouTube and appreciate Bully Maguire and so the memes, and that's it.
I'm gonna say if you feel the same way as Jacob did, which I did, listen to Jacob. Don't watch it again. Don't watch. I was very much prepared to be a Spider-Man 3 truther, and it did. Bully McGuire's fun. Everything else, good lord. But that's it. That's all I got. I also rewatched Dune, but we literally talked about it for 2.5 hours. My opinions haven't changed. Dune is good.
And yet, I mean, if you really wanted to, we could kickstart that conversation up again because, as I've mentioned to
Dune?
you, I think there's more to say.
There's always more. I mean, hey, if you want to bring up some Dune points, sure.
Suddenly wheels in like a whole chalkboard of Dune points. Number one, things we didn't cover in our 2.5 hour discussion of Dune.
Long ass discussion. Dune is a good movie.
That
Saw
it
it in
is.
IMAX again.
Actually, I will bring up my dad didn't care for it, which bummed me out. But
Damn shit.
it didn't bother me as much as my friend other Jacob not caring for it.
No, I just realized that there's another movie you watched that you forgot to talk about.
What? Which one?
A certain Mike Lee joint.
Oh, anyway, so
Alright, sure.
my dad has a very particular taste in movies, and I've gotten used to it. Like, I've been disappointed so many times showing him movies I love, and he's like, I didn't care for it. And it's gotten to the point where he was like, I didn't care for Dune. I was like, okay, let's never talk about this again. But with my friend other Jacob, I'm like, you didn't even give it a shot. You didn't even finish it. I feel like much more like passionate about
Yeah.
that for some reason. There's no difference between the two of them.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So
Not based.
I got Secrets and Lies during the Criterion Barnes and Noble sale. I rewatched it. It's perfect. Mike Lee is a master of cinema, and for some
Based
reason
in
I
Smallville.
underestimated how emotionally grinding that movie was going to be at the end.
What do you mean? When I watched it for the first time, I was exhausted by the end of it.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
for some reason I underestimated it. There's no reason for me to do it.
Because you watched it with your
But
mom, didn't you?
well, yeah, because I had to there's no good time to show your parents Secrets and Lies,
No.
especially when you're adopted. But
I didn't even think about that.
obviously I got questions. Do
Awesome.
you have ulterior motives by showing me this movie? No, it's just a good
Jesus.
movie. So I always, my mom's always like, I want to watch something nice and easy and light, which is why we
And you
usually
gave her Secrets and Lies.
no, because every night we just default to an Agatha Christie adaptation, and I get
That's
sick of
fair.
that after a while.
That's fair.
And so I was like, well, there's never going to be a good time. And so I psyched myself up to show Secrets and Lies. It's like, it's not that bad. It's just, it is. It's a fun, light movie, except, towards the end. But
Except
it's
the
great.
30 minutes of shouting at the end. Yeah.
It is really good movie. Really wish there was a commentary on that Blu-ray. That's probably the only
God.
disappointment of the whole thing. Other than that,
We've
highly
been
recommend it.
disappointed since it was announced that there wasn't going to be a Mike Lee commentary.
Yeah, we'll probably keep bringing it up occasionally.
Mike Lee, you're too good to not talk about your movies. Too funny a man. You're not going to be around much longer. Let's face it.
Maybe
Clock is
Criterion can
ticking,
start
my friend.
releasing DLC for their movies. You can download a commentary.
I'd buy the season pass for Mike Lee.
The Mike Lee season. You know what speaking of Knives Out, which you mentioned briefly about 5 minutes ago,
Yes.
I popped in my Knives Out 4K not Criterion Blu-ray.
One can hope.
And which is pretty good, pretty packed with the special features, which is nice. I'm doing research about murder mysteries, so I watched some of the behind the scenes, and then I noticed there's not just one commentary, there's a second commentary, which I never noticed before. And it said in theater commentary with Rian Johnson. So the only thing I can guess, because I've never seen that before, and it sounds like a great idea, is I think Rian Johnson just sat down and watched his movie in a theater and just talked about it while he was watching it.
Isn't that what a commentary is?
Well, no. Well, yes, but with a normal commentary, it's like this. They're talking about, they can stop, edit the conversation.
Is it literally just Mike Lee or Rian Johnson?
I think so. Anyway, I will engage with that, see what that's all about, and then report back.
Yeah.
But it sounds like a good idea because most commentaries are edited. People cut
Yeah.
things
Yeah.
out, except for what was it, that one P. Anderson one where he goes to the
He
bathroom.
pisses in the middle of it. Yeah, it's Boogie
Yeah,
Nights.
yeah,
Yeah, very
that's great.
based.
And I think Wes
A wonderful
Anderson
call.
left in a phone call in one of his commentaries. That's fun, but for the most part, movie commentaries are edited things. They're
Yeah.
like podcasts that roughly line up with the movie that they're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anyway, so Lawrence of Arabia is
Lawrence.
Lawrence is a movie,
Is it a good movie? Only time will tell.
and by time we mean the beginning of this video. We already told you.
Yeah.
All right.
I actually would like to begin. Oh no, go ahead. Sure.
Okay. So very quickly, if you don't already know, Lawrence of Arabia is a 1962 British epic historical drama based on the real life figure of T.E. Lawrence. It is directed by director David Lean, who did other movies like Bridge Over the River Kwai, Dr. Zhivago, Brief Encounter, which we reviewed recently.
We did. We did. Another
Go
classic.
watch that review after watching this one. It's also a good movie. It stars Peter O'Toole, Alec Guinness, other people, and it is about World War One, the World War One campaign in the Ottoman Empire in the Middle East, the Arab Revolt, the British forces dealing with the Ottomans. There's a lot of complicated history that is happening, but the movie slims it down quite nicely. So
I
you
agree.
know, there's all these. It's a very complicated political situation that is just kind of ultra focused on specifically the Arab rebellion revolt against the Ottomans and the Lawrence, who was a officer in the British Army, helping them achieve the goal of kicking Ottoman ass. So
Which he did.
yes, that is the movie essentially.
Well, I did. I decided to look back in my old review for this because I saw this for the first time June 27th of 2018. Saw it in a theater because they were playing it for a Tuesday night classic, and I just wrote,
Very jealous.
"Oh, you never seen it in the theater?
No, I'll have to.
Wow."
In a moment, I will tell you the one of the greatest disappointments of my entire life. But continue.
Oh, basically, my review said something. I'm just going to paraphrase what I said. There's a difference between the greatest movie of all time and my favorite. This is not my favorite movie of all time, but this is the greatest movie of all time. In the sense that I think everything about this movie is just perfect. Just about everything in this movie is perfect.
Just about. There are some interesting things that you could point to that aren't necessarily perfect. But anyway, so my great disappointment, perhaps the greatest disappointment I've ever had, is finding out that the Loft here in Tucson was going to show Lawrence of Arabia on film, and
Oh,
then making plans to drive down from Phoenix. This was back when I was living up there with Nate to drive down here and go watch it. And then we waited too long and the tickets had sold out. And that was RIP. I would have
that would
loved
have
to have done
been
that.
amazing. I'm
I
amazed you
still
haven't
think
seen
about
it in a theater.
yeah, I still think about that from time to time, and it is a genuine regret. Film critic problems.
Granted, when I saw it, it was not being projected on film.
Right, but either way, big
Still,
screen,
oh
the
yeah,
speakers, the sound, everything.
it was. It was the first time I think I'd ever gone to a movie with an overture. It was a very
Yeah,
odd experience because watching it the second time, I just skipped the overture. Probably shouldn't have, but I did. But at the time, like they fucking pump you up for that movie.
I
Just
can't
black
fault you for skipping
screen.
the overture.
Yeah, gets me every time.
And then
Gets me
they
every
play
time.
it again for the opening
They do.
credits.
They do.
So nice they played it twice.
Yeah, it's a wonderful theme.
A really
Never
good
get tired of
music.
hearing that theme.
Yeah. The movie, as you know, let's just dive into one of the potential interesting points. Now that we are viewing this movie in the 21st century, uh, this movie is obviously starring Peter O'Toole, who is a British person playing a British person, but it is also starring good old Alec Guinness, who gives one hell of a performance as Prince Faisal
Mm,
in Arab face
Arab
makeup.
face, yeah.
Uh,
Blackface Jason.
and not just Alec Guinness, but also the actor Anthony Quinn, who I'm familiar with. I'm not sure.
I don't think so.
Do you know? Okay. He's been in stuff. I'm sure you've seen things with him in it.
Wait, who did he play?
Uh, Ayuda Abu Tai, the
The guy they crossed the desert to meet.
yes, him.
I had a feeling that he was white.
Yeah, he.
They really overdid it with the
I think it's
nose.
actually. I noticed that at one point, but I think he's a bit better made up than Alec Guinness is.
I agree. Alec
But
Guinness
then
literally just
again,
looks painted.
we know who Alec Guinness is, so it might be more obvious because of
Yeah.
that. And Anthony Quinn is a bit less recognizable of a face, so maybe it's easier
I
to
think
get away
Alec
with that.
Guinness too didn't necessarily hide his voice. It just felt like a British guy underneath there, whereas the other guy was a little more, which is really weird considering that they have Omar Sharif, who's in a good amount of the movie. I don't understand.
So, yeah, here's the thing that I was surprised to find out. They actually Omar Sharif was not their first choice to play Sherif Ali. They actually offered the role to a bunch of other people first, almost like they were purposely avoiding
Yeah,
diverse casting. And actually,
Mickey Rooney.
one of the people they offered the role to was Alain Delon,
What? I love it.
who
Alain
who
Delon
Alain Delon,
is
Alain
wonderful.
Delon, it makes various French noises. That actor,
The consonants, yeah. Of
yeah,
Le Samurai and La Leopard fame.
La Leopard fame, yes, both of which are also reviews. Watch
Yes,
them,
yes, please.
good movies.
Chicken here.
There, yes, down below. So what do you think about that? The use
The
of
blackface,
yes,
essentially.
essentially.
I mean, it's dumb.
Does it affect the quality of the film for you?
No, not really. Maybe it will at some point. It's just one of those things where when a movie's made in a certain time period, I just kind of like don't even bother with the mental gymnastics needed to justify this. What is me getting upset about it gonna do?
Okay, so yeah, thank you for getting to that because whenever I watch older media and I think to myself, well, I'm not bothered by this, and like that's okay, that's a fine reaction, but why? Like I feel a need to justify it because I think this is a little more forgivable than other things.
Yeah,
Obviously it's not like
their
real,
characters at least.
yeah, and they do have Omar Sharif, who is an Egyptian actor, and that's you know most
The bar is low.
that's better diversity than some movies that are coming out today. Yeah. Um, so I was trying to think of like why is it better? And part of it goes to, if they're all dead, why
Who
worry?
cares?
Like
It's fine.
here's
We're gonna
here's
cancel
Al
Lawrence of Arabia.
here's Alec Guinness's address, i.e. the cemetery. Go yell at his grave. What do you think you're doing? Um, but right, like I think it's entirely performed because people will it's just a symptom of the times we live in. People will complain about
Yeah,
that or find fault with it. And I think there is fault to find with it. I'm just not sure that there's a point now, as you said. Like
yeah. It's
I'm all for criticizing movies that do it now, that do it
oh
today.
well, don't do it now. Yeah, fuck.
Yeah, but you know, this movie's ancient.
Everyone is dead who works in this movie. They're all gone. Who
Maybe not
cares?
everyone. I wonder if everyone
But
is.
yeah, I'm sure there's like a kid. There's like a baby.
Well, yeah, but like the main cast. Another interesting cast connection: the Turkish mayor or whatever he is, the one that has
Sexually
Lawrence
assaults
beaten. Well, implied, but yes, has Lawrence beaten. He is played by Jose Ferrer.
from the good, the bad, the ugly.
Uh,
No, the Wild Bunch.
no, who is, I'm also probably butchering that last name. He plays the Emperor in Dune, the David Lynch Dune.
Oh, the good Dune.
He is also the good Dune, the father of Miguel Ferrer, who's in Twin Peaks.
Oh, he's Albert.
Yeah, Albert. Yeah. And
Okay.
apparently, Jose Ferrer is also the uncle of George Clooney. He's in one scene.
He has to
plays
be dead.
a terrible Turkish man. Yeah, he's definitely dead. Anyway, that was interesting. I never had recognized him before as an actor. Also, there's Claude Rains in this, who was great, and which leads me to one of my only genuine criticisms of the film. It's not even a criticism. I think they overdid some of the makeup. Like Claude Rains looks like he is wearing a few too many layers of eyeliner.
Yeah,
and
a tad.
And I'm not even gonna bother the makeup, the Arab makeup, whatever. That's not.
That's its own.
But like some like the actual makeup just looks like it was like put on a little too heavy, like it's too theatrical.
Oh my god! You know when I was thinking about that, in the first scene after the intermission, or one of the first scenes after the intermission, where Lawrence conducts the first raid on the train, that guy who is shooting at him, who shoots him in the arm, his face is like literally painted black for like it's supposed to be soot and ash from the explosion. It just looks ridiculous. But it's a big production. There's gonna be little fuck ups like that.
I blame it on Britishness. Yeah.
Well, yeah, you're gonna get some of that. But here's a question I want to ask you.
Oh, and that's it. That's the only actual complaint I have about the movie.
I don't think I have any complaints really. I mean,
I have another one, but it's a preference one.
Oh, okay.
Anyway.
Well, here's a question I want to ask you, because I've been wrestling with this whole time. What do you think this film says about colonialism?
This is a great movie because every time you watch it, you can see something new. There's a lot to unpack and to think about. And one of those is, this time around, I really noticed that the Ottomans are technically the villains, the antagonists of the movie. But they're too nebulous as an antagonist to work as a real interesting counterpoint towards Lawrence and the Arab revolt. Like you see them running away, you go to the Ottoman town in one scene, but other than that, you're not really ever interacting with the Ottomans, who are, if this was a movie taking place in Europe, the Germans are obviously the antagonists and all that. So then obviously I think the movie's real strong suit, the real kind of antagonistic force that's pretty subtle, is the British Empire. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it
specifically fucking what's his name? The little pudgy man.
The little pudgy
Dryden.
Mr. Dryden. Yes. And the general
shifty man. Yep.
Shifty man, a politician. This movie has a bit to say about politics too.
The general pretends he's not a politician when he very much is a politician.
Yeah. It's really I'm surprised at, this is a movie that is so, I'm pretty sure, like, beloved in England. David Lean is one of the most quintessential English directors, other than Powell and Pressburger, probably.
Hitchcock.
Well, Hitchcock was American,
but he's English.
But he didn't make quintessentially English movies.
Mike Leigh. Just kidding.
Well, modern, yeah. You know what? Mike Leigh might be the next generation of great English directors. But for someone who's so respected, this is kind of paints the British as terrible. Absolutely
I agree.
Terrible.
I agree.
Like, it does it in I think a pretty British way, like a pretty subtle, but also not subtle. I don't know if, like, do you get that, where it's like not obviously like bashing the British, but
because it's weird, because I think this time I was more, I realized just how layered this movie is, because it's not strictly anti-British, nor is it strictly pro-Arab, right? Because I feel like a huge part of this is
it's sympathetic to the Arabs more than it is the British, though.
But also, I think it recognizes the shortcomings of of the Arab struggle at that time, which was they didn't necessarily have the resources to kickstart their own country civilization union type thing. So towards the end, when you have Lawrence trying to help all of the Arab tribes like create legislature and stuff like that in that big hall where there's just a big fight and people are talking about getting fire trucks and stuff like that, you can see that in a way the British or like the that sort of hand of God type thing was a benefit to these people who didn't necessarily have the wherewithal to unite as well as they could have. But at the same time, the British are still painted as like these sort of devious orchestrators of like oppression and colonialism. And God, every scene with Dryden, he's just so fucking slimy. And
Except in the
God,
beginning, I feel like that's a really great like turnaround. Like in the beginning, you are warm to Dryden. He gets Lawrence out of the stuffy little office that he's in. He
yep.
seems like a nice guy, nice character, and then when you meet him again, he's shifty,
Well, it's
very
funny
shifty.
too because that British control also corrupts the Arabs because Faisal at the end turns into a full fucking politician. Faisal's already making deals. He's already selling off parts of his country to
Well,
the
partly
British.
partly out of necessity because the British are essentially just implicitly threatening them.
Yeah.
Like you can't do anything about this, so how about we talk this through and we're just going to take over your country and you're going to be a colony. It's that simple. That's okay.
But it's also Faisal himself is painted as kind of devious because he basically at the end after he sends Lawrence away, basically saying like glad we're rid of him, and someone even makes a point saying that you're just as ruthless as we are. So it's like this whole I don't think it necessarily paints either of these sides in a good or bad light. It's just sort of this greed, this corruption that kind of spreads through everyone. That is kind of
Yeah.
the
I'm
the
not I'm
the
not sure
root
if Faisal
evil.
is exactly like I don't think it's saying he's greedy or corrupt like the British
He's
might be. It's
playing
a
the
different
game.
he's playing the game, which is different than doing it um for bad reasons. And like him being rid of Lawrence is it's bad because of the friendship that they have, not because of Faisal betraying Lawrence in any way. He's not doing that. He's just the it is one I think one of the more interesting exchanges in the film that ending where they're both he says we're both glad to be rid of Lawrence, and I think
Yeah.
that kind of speaks towards the whole theme of heroes and how Lawrence has like this mystique around him and he's built up such a following that he has sort of a power within the Arab revolt that Faisal doesn't need as a leader. The fighting is done, and now he needs to coalesce everyone around him, not
Mhm.
around Lawrence, and have this fighter still kind of misdirecting people's attention.
But it's also interesting because Omar Sharif almost feels like a moral and complete opposite end of the moral spectrum compared to Faisal, where Sharif to me feels like he legitimately wants to see the Arab unification through to the end. He wants something good for his people. He wants to unify. He wants power, but he just basically just wants to make his own country. Whereas Faisal himself, I don't know. I just never got the same impression. It was felt a little more selfish to me. But it's very interesting what this movie has to say about politics and colonialism in general. I do think
Yeah.
in general it's pretty anti. I think some people mistake this as like a pro-colonialist type fable, and there's
I
definitely
mean, it is
some
if you don't really like
elements.
think about it,
Yeah,
but it makes the movie takes a lot of time talking about how like the British are screwing over the Arabs. Like that's a big plot point in the film, and like they talk
yeah,
about like not giving artillery to the Arab revolt because that would make them independent, and they don't do that. So it
yeah.
if you're paying attention to the dialogue, which is quite wonderfully cleverly written, where it the dialogue of this movie is so good, but in a way that I don't think I've ever really like seen in a lot of other movies, where it's not like deep pretentious dialogue, but it's also not like just standard. where it's incredibly approachable in terms of like the conversations. Like I feel like most people can follow this movie.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
not like some like
yeah, yeah.
classic film. It's not like Colonel Blimp, where I feel like some, yeah, like the youths of today might watch that and struggle to keep up with some of it. Not just because of the uh, British dialogue, but like references or allusions to other things. But the dialogue in Lawrence of Arabia does really kind
It's
of
poetic.
explain it out.
Yeah,
Everything,
it's
like
simple.
all the exposition, it very clearly establishes the relationships between people, but it does it in a way that is just mostly like implicitly, like you have to connect the dots, but it leads you there. So it gives you everything you need, but then does leave a little bit for the audience to like fill in the gaps. And it's just incredibly accessible in a way that I don't think a lot of like dialogue of like great movies, not to say like dialogue from other movies, but it's
That's how I felt about the dialogue in Brief Encounter.
mm,
Simple but poetic. Says a lot by saying a little. Um, there's also this movie is just full of those capital C cinema moments. So many
well,
just
we could spend probably the next 3 hours just, oh, and then there's this one. And then there's this one. Oh, what about
but
this?
well that's the thing is that it's got so many like obviously Peter O'Toole, one of the greatest performances of all time. I don't think it was until this viewing that I really realized just how good he is by he portrays the theatricality that's like inherent of a historical figure like this without making it feel too theatrical. Like he's just theatrical enough that you would understand how someone like Lawrence could sway an entire people, but he's not playing it up for the camera in the way that I think it's distracting. But you have obviously the acting is wonderful, the
Mm.
writing is wonderful, the editing. Of course, there's that all-time famous cut, the literal match cut, um, the cinematography, banger after banger. I think this time around, I mean, there's obviously a lot of wonderful shots, but just the thing to me that like defines the epic is the scale. It doesn't necessarily have to be scale in the sense that a lot of shit is happening. There's a lot of quote unquote production value, but there's this one shot in particular that just blows my mind every time. After the intermission, when they're getting ready to blow up the train, it's just Lawrence leading. The entire like Arab army is like lined up against these mountain, like the sand hill.
The dunes, yeah.
Yeah, just one shot of Lawrence like peering over the dune. You can just see behind him fucking hundreds and hundreds of people just all doing the same thing, all down a row, just ready for him. It's just so many moments like that where they get the scale without hitting you over the head with just how big this production is. It feels historical in a way that a lot of movies don't.
Yeah. And it's this is the quintessential, I think. They don't make them like they used to movie. Big old boomer phrase there, but I do think it has its
I
time and
agree.
place, and this is it at
Yeah.
the time and place. And I can only think of a movie like Avengers Endgame, where contrastly, I'm not making this as a positive correlation. I'm saying like that is such a huge modern epic of a movie in terms of anything that's come out recently, of like how
Yeah.
many actors there are in it, how many people, there are shots with hundreds of people in it. It's long too, as most movies, long in a way that a lot of movies aren't these days. And yet it feels so empty
Yeah.
in a way that Lawrence doesn't. And that's just the limitations of CGI and bad cinematography. Sorry, Adventures Endgame has bad cinematography.
Sorry,
Um,
Russo's.
but that's a limitation, and I think Lawrence of Arabia is a great movie to like contrast with a lot of movies these days of where the the effort and the scale, the framing, everything just makes it go seem epic. And it's not even like even shots like that where the one you were talking about with everyone on the dunes, even the shots where it's just Peter O'Toole and the desert in the background. It's still there's an epic scale. There's a huge monumentality to it that just is lost
But
in like a
really,
lot of movies these
there's a
days.
lot of these epic moments where I think on paper this isn't there's anything there's not too much super flashy about this. Like one thing, another from that same scene, I think of that scene where Lawrence is on the train, on top of the train, and just his shadow is being followed by that like mob of people. Like when you look at that, that's not like the most insane budgetary shot. It's just a shadow and a few people following it, but just the I don't know the staging of it, the blocking, the sound work is just all so. I mean, there are like the money shots, if you will. Them charging Aqaba is an amazing shot. Just a lot of scenes of camels riding through the desert. Lots of
Lots of that.
camels.
And I
Lots of
find it
it.
really
And I
interesting
never
that
get
when
boring
you
of it.
yeah, think about the movie, it's a war movie, but there's not really all that much action. And I
No.
think the real like action of the movie is uh the cinema. Like when it goes into like those cinematic moments that you have this kind of pattern in the movie where you have some conversations between characters, you have relationship development and building, and then you build up to these sequences where it's just pure cinema. And it could be just as simple as someone sitting on a camel waiting for Lawrence to come out back from the horizon. That is a action sequence in this movie essentially, but
Oh yeah.
nothing's really happening. The action is in the way the bombastic, beautiful cinematography and the way the editing, the way it's all cut together. And that's what makes it those are like the really interesting sequences.
I mean, just something as simple as Omar Sharif approaching from the horizon, which is one of the best
These
shots of all
so
time.
many so many of these moments in Lawrence of Arabia inspire what I'm going to call cinematic ecstasy, where you just see it and you're like, "Oh god, that beautiful."
I
You just get like
agree.
this feeling in your soul and it's like this is cinema. You get
Yeah.
very like like whenever you see like a very cute puppy and you want to like angrily pinch its cheeks. You're so cute. It's like that. You get so angry at Lawrence. It's like, oh, so fucking good. But there's like very few movies that like inspire such visceral reactions of where when I watch it, like just sink back into my chair and I'm just oof.
Oh,
You don't get much
dude,
better.
I can't even because I went into this blind the first time I saw it in the theater. That scene in particular, I was just like, oh Lord, oh the cinema, oh my God. Um, Score is also great.
Yep.
I never get tired of that theme. But it's
Oh.
funny too because there are moments, like the scene in particular that stood out to me is another one of the capital C cinema moments. The no prisoners, that scene.
No prisoners.
Yeah.
No prisoners.
And then when it starts, if you like listen, it's like it's the same theme, but it's like a syncopated, fucked up version of the theme.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's some sour notes, and it's just it's they get a lot of mileage. Yeah, they get a lot of mileage out of this one theme.
One of my favorite little riffs on that theme is at the very end of the movie where it's the Lawrence of Arabia theme. Obviously we know it as this big huge orchestral work, but at the very end they eliminate everything and I think it's just on a what's the string instrument anyway, where it's just plucking a very lightly plucking one instrument, string instrument plucking the theme, and it's just soft and quiet and it's beautiful and kind of like lulls you out into the end credits. It's so good. So my other this is not a criticism of the movie. It's
It's a
not a complaint about
preference.
the movie. It is a problem I've had with the movie every time I watch it. Every time. And it's that I love the first half of this movie to bits, to tears, and the second half always is a letdown. I don't mean like a letdown in terms of quality, and it is partially on purpose because the first half is the
It's
big
the Goodfellas
cinematic
effect.
epic. It's the your rising action, you're building up Lawrence as this hero, and then the second half is the tragedy. It's the quagmire of war and politics. It's shitty. It's a terrible ending. You don't think about it too much, but I find it hilarious that this is the perhaps the only World War One movie. The war with like shitty trench warfare and everything,
Yeah.
the psychological trauma and all that. It's the only World War One movie where the main character is punished by being sent home and promoted. and he's
Yeah.
miserable at the end. It's a great, as much as like I don't like, I'm not as into the last second half. The ending is so perfect, where he's
I
just being
agree.
driven away, and it's like you're going
I always
home.
forget that's where it
Like
ends.
I don't want to go home.
Yeah.
And essentially, you think back to the very beginning of the movie because I think it's a really great opening that you start off with Lawrence's death, and
Yeah. Well, it's
it's
funny
just
because I agree on paper. Like I said, it's the Goodfellas effect. Obviously, everyone remembers the good shit, the fun stuff, the rise and the fall isn't as fun. But I think the second half, there's a lot of interesting stuff to it. I especially love how
Mhm.
the Chicago reporter gets integrated into the story. And for some reason, I always think that's Joseph Cotton. It's not.
Hmm.
It isn't.
Oh, let me clarify. Like the quality of the film is 100% throughout. There's
Yeah.
no dip in quality. There's not a second
Yeah.
act slump. There's none of that. It's
Yeah.
just
It's just not as fun.
the sequences I like. Yeah, the whole exploring the world, the killer scene transitions are all in the first half. The really, I think if you really wanted to get nitpicky, I think there is a slight downgrade in quality because I think I don't take that as me actually saying that, but like the
I get what you're
sequences in
saying.
the first half are just I think so well constructed. Like
Yeah.
going through the desert, the Nefud, what a good sequence.
The Gom
The
Jabbar.
meeting um the Hassamites, the Ayuda Abu Tai, Anthony Quinn's character for the first time. The
The
whole
Benny
sequence
Gesserit.
leading up to Omar Sharif's entrance. These are like best scenes of all time kind of content. And the second half doesn't have any of those like best scenes of all
I
time
would
kind of
argue it
stuff.
has one.
Ooh, which one?
It's when they're raiding the first train. I think that's perfect.
Oh.
The
It's
train the
great. Yeah.
train explodes, it falls on its side, they charge it. I love the scene of him like dancing on top of the train with his robe, people following.
It's emphasizing his mystique as a hero. As
Yeah. Yeah. I also really like the scene where Lawrence is trying to help Faisal and everyone, not Faisal, Sharif and everyone. The scene that takes place in the big throne room where they're all trying to
Mhm.
like govern each
Yeah,
other. That's
it's great.
fun too. It's fun in a different way. But no, I agree. All that sort of the money shots, the glamour, the cinema, it's sort of by design has to be front loaded.
Yeah.
So I think people will always think that the second half is not as good. To me, that's where it all clicks, gets really interesting. But I
Oh, the
agree.
interesting stuff, the
Yeah,
thematic stuff, it
yeah.
explores, gets deep and rich in the second half.
But sometimes you just want that cinema.
Yes,
You
yes, and
just
I could probably watch the first 2 hours of this on repeat. Just finish it, get to the intermission, press replay, watch it again.
it's nice too because I like that the way this is paced because the first half is like a good 2 hours 20 minutes, something like that. The second half, when you add up the credits and the intermission, it's only about an hour 20, which I think is perfect because you don't want it to go on too long.
Yeah, the second half is actually a lot tighter pacing wise than the
Yeah.
first half. It's surprising. Like it doesn't fly by because it's a long movie, obviously, but it is like the first half really takes its time. You don't notice it, but it does. In the second half, it's like one, two, three, one moment to another. Characters are going all over the place.
Second half is always also interesting because both times that I've seen it, it never feels like it's about to end until it just ends, and I think that's perfect because it puts you in Lawrence's perspective. Like, you don't want this joyride to end. And for some reason, I always thought it did the Citizen Kane thing where it looped back to the beginning at the end, or looped back to the time of the death. But no, it just sort of. But you begin with his physical death, but you end the movie with his spiritual death.
Yeah,
Because
it's a good
Lawrence,
way of
as a
putting it.
character, that's where he dies. He's done. He's got nothing left. He's an Arab weeb. Lawrence is the first weeb.
The other great stuff about the ending is, of course, it's not quite heartbreaking, but when they say goodbye, Ali and Lawrence, and they have this kind of, it's not really a fight, but Ali leaves him and he's
He
crying.
cries.
Yeah,
Sad.
it's heartbreaking at the end of a relationship, and I find it so. This is what I really noticed about this time around is Ali's arc throughout the movie because he has a pretty good,
He does.
interesting arc, and I just love love so much that you are introduced to him and he just murders a man for drinking out of his well. And like he's introduced as not a good guy. And then you very
But by the
quickly
end, like,
flip
aw.
around and
Especially because he becomes the voice of reason more than
yeah.
anyone
Hmm.
towards the end. It's always interesting.
Yeah. And then another moment that, we talked about when Faisal is like, we're equally glad to be rid of him. But I find that that's such an interesting moment because a few moments earlier, as Lawrence is leaving, and I find this is like an absolutely like very perfectly edited moment where Lawrence just leaves the room. And after, but just as he's leaving, Faisal says, "What I owe you can't be put into words."
Yeah.
Is immeasurable, and it seems like it's like a very real kind of like goodbye between the two of them that felt genuine and honest. That Prince Faisal genuinely like feels so much for him, but at the same time, moments later, he like the politician turns back on. He's like, "Well, I'm glad he's gone." I just find
Yeah.
that so interesting.
Yeah. It's a lot more layered than I gave it credit for.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very interesting movie. It's one of those movies that I feel like I'll watch forever, find something new every time. Maybe I'll like it more, maybe I'll like it less,
Mm.
but it'll be one that I'll be thinking about. I think that's important. More than
Yeah,
anything, that's important.
it's a great deconstruction of the hero myth. I hope Dune does a similar thing
It
with
gets to the
its
third,
second
the
half.
second book. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, Denis has said that Lawrence is a bit of a inspiration note.
They shot in
Obviously,
the same desert.
yeah. I desperately want to go to Wadi Rum and Aqaba and visit all those places. I've been really
You want to
close.
charge?
Yeah,
Oh, on your pilgrimage.
no, I've been really
What do you call
close,
it?
but I just need to go back and spend like you can go and camp Bedouin tents out in Wadi Rum
Oh,
now. That
wonderful.
just sounds like so much fun. And just staying a
I
couple days
agree.
there and like wandering around and like just looking up that rock. That's from the shot. I feel like that just be me the whole time. Like over there.
That rock was in a establishing shot. 30 minutes into the movie, go to the well,
One
go to
of the a
where
great
he
little
shot that
detail
guy.
about the well sequence, the Omar Sharif entrance is there's a like a little yellow line of sand going off into the distance that kind of leads your eye towards Omar Sharif, and that was fake sand put in by uh,
Oh, interesting.
to lead to create more
Yeah,
like
the eye
visual emphasis on
cinema.
Omar Sharif's entrance. It's really good. I love that's some of my favorite things, little factoids about movies to find out when directors very subtly change the scenery in order to emphasize things like in Sancho the Bailiff. uh, Mizuguchi had them paint the bamboo stalks black in the suicide scene so that it became even more like starkly contrasted than in real life. And there's a bunch of other examples where like you'll never notice
There,
it,
there's
but
one in Ron, which is interesting. Where it's similar. Where Akira Kurosawa, because of a certain shot in Ron where he wanted the sun set to reflect off of the fields in a certain way, he had all of the production crew paint the grass and the barley a certain shade of gold, which took like 7 or 8 hours for an establishing shot, and then he threw out the shot altogether.
I love that. I love
Wonderful.
that kind of dedication
Yep.
to just getting the
Wonderful.
perfect visual.
There's also a great shot in Fargo, that famous shot, the overhead shot of the parking lot. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah.
That's all snow. That it was a very warm winter, so they had to throw that snow everywhere where you can see the shot, and like just an inch off frame, it's all just like pavement, which is especially funny because when it cuts to like the normal wide, you can see in the background that there's no snow anywhere else except for on top of this parking garage. Wonderful, wonderful.
Yes, great movie. Lawrence of Arabia, does it deserve to be on the BFI Sight and Sound
Yeah,
greatest films of all
come
time
on.
list? It needs
Are
to
you
be
kidding
higher,
me?
honestly. That's a little low.
Yeah, I guess we're on the halfway, especially since it's a British movie.
It's a touch low, governor. A bit cringe of you to do that. Yeah,
It's one of those
it's
movies that
it's a
it's
top
just.
30 at least.
I agree. I agree. It's been in my favorite movies for a while list. It's just like everything you want a movie to be. Like if this isn't what you think of when you think of movies, you're thinking of books. You're thinking of music.
Couldn't have put it better. You're thinking of books.
This is everything you want. Go look at a sculpture, you nerd. Get out of my cinema club. So
Did you see? I texted this. This is cut right here, Jacob. We're done. Thanks for watching.
We're good.
Like, comment, subscribe.
Smash.
Let us smash that like button. Let us know what you think of Lawrence of Arabia. Great movie. Go watch it. You can watch it actually for free on Amazon currently, with ads though, with IMDb TV. I
4K
unfortunately no, I think that's just the HD version.
Cringe.
I did a bad thing. And that is I rented the HD version of, not the HD, the UA, the 4K version of Lawrence, obviously.
Lawrence.
Watched the first half and then promptly forgot to finish it within 48 hours, and then I had to watch the IMDb free version for the second half, which is fine. It's HD still.
Anyways, that was Split Take.
Thanks.